G'day, I'm Ralph Mayhew and welcome to this video where we're going to be talking about different ways to compose an image so that it looks epic on your screen, and it's going to be dead simple. Now before we get into that, something I'd like to have a chat about, and that is my YouTube channel name. So not my name, but the actual URL. You see, when you get to 100 subscribers, and currently I'm like 75 or something, but when you get to 100 you get to, I think, name your URL. Now, check out what my current URL is, because I've been asked. People say, oh, how do I find you? And I simply say, just type in www.youtube.com/UC1KGT. It goes on and on, right? What? So, subscribe down below. Hit the bell, because that means you get a notification as soon as it happens, and I'll be able to give this thing a proper URL rather than some stupid code that just goes on and on and on and on. So without further ado, let's get started. And to do that, we need a subject that we're going to photograph, and so I'd like to introduce you to this. This is a old beer bottle. I think we got it at a wedding. Pretty cool. So it's going to be like this, and into this I'm going to put a flower. It's going to be beautiful. Ready? Here comes the flower. That's beautiful, right? much more beautiful than me, and straight out of the garden. What? Alright, so let me get rid of me for a moment and blacken out this ugly background. Let's try that. The first thing to do is whack it smack bang in the center. That looks great, doesn't it? Alright, take a photo of that. Good job. Then there's this thing they call rule of thirds. It's where you place something at the crosshairs. If we put some crosshairs on the screen now, so you can see what I mean, there's 4 points where you want to locate your subject. Or it might look like this. The idea with the rule of thirds is you put the main subject at the crosshairs and it adds interest. Then there's the rule of odds. That looks like this. Oi, shush! The rule of odds. For some reason, 3 things, or 5 things, or 7 things, or 1 thing is more exciting or intriguing to the eye than 2, 4, 6, blah, blah, blah. Interesting, right? If you can go with 3, or 5, or 7, that's the way to go. Then we have minimalist. That's when we take basically everything away. The idea behind minimalism and creating a lot of negative space is it draws your eyes to the subject that's quite clearly and obviously the subject. Let's talk about leading lines next. Leading lines is the idea that you create lines and you use lines to draw people's attention from where they start all the way through to your subject. Alright, so we just created this leading line with a torch. Obviously you probably wouldn't do this if you were just shooting the flower in the bottle. However, it does lead people's eyes to the subject, and that's what you want to do. That's what leading lines do. They lead your eyes to the thing. There's heaps of leading lines everywhere else. Use them to your advantage. Moving on. 6 is called frame in a frame. You've basically got the camera frame that you're already working with, and then you put something in front of your subject that actually frames it. This could be a window frame or a door frame or a square or a box or whatever. You can get really creative. Here, it's a photo frame, and so it gives the impression that it is now framed and worthwhile people's attention. Next, we move to contrasting the foreground with the background. As you'll see, there's nothing in the foreground. And so, if we take the flower and we place the flower in the foreground and the bottle, perhaps like this, and it tells a story, it draws people in, it fills the foreground and leads them to the background, and they get to work out what's happened here. Let's get that flower back up. That's better. Next, we get up real close. And if I were taking a photo, I reckon I'd take that shot. You try to fill the frame, get in nice and close, and obviously if you use the rule of thirds, It looks a little bit more interesting than sticking it straight in the middle. The next composition technique is to talk about filling the frame. Let me show you what this might look like. With two elements, it's quite tricky, but here's what I'd do. We have too much negative space for this technique to work really well, but I hope you get the feel and the idea of what it could look like. You just fill the whole frame with your subject. If you were taking a photo of someone, you wouldn't have any space on either side of their head or up and down. You'd have their whole face in the shot. If you're taking a picture of a car, there would be no other space around it. You probably zoom in a bit more so you couldn't see the edges of the car. Next, let's talk about symmetry. The idea with symmetry is that the two sides look identical. There's something pleasing to our human eye about symmetry, which is why when you see me again, you'll see that I'm not very pleasing to the human eye because of my crooked mouth that you'll never be able to unsee now. All right, cruising right along, I want to talk about when you change the perspective of a shot. It's very easy to look at this and go, let's just shoot it front on. It looks pretty. Let's stick it in our rule of thirds. Looks nice. But there's other ways to shoot this flower, even if you're limited to the 15mm that we're shooting with today. Let me show you. Now the final one I want to talk about, and let me tell you, there's plenty more we could talk about, but is color balancing. This is a color wheel. Woo! Basically, the colors on one side stand opposite to the colors on the other side, and if you could put those two colors together in one shot, it looks really nice. Let me show you what I mean. Opposite to a reddy pink on the color wheel is a disgusting yellowy green, but we get a pretty cool contrast of colors. So one of the ways you can compose a shot is by relying on the different colors available to you, making the most of them. Well, I hope that was helpful. There's tons and tons of different ways you can compose a shot, but those few tricks will help your photos go from mediocre to great. They will help grab people's attention and draw them into what you're saying, and often it's just a slight tweak or a different perspective or thinking about it differently. So if these videos are helpful, subscribe. Maybe we'll get to 100, maybe we won't. Does it really matter? No, because this is fun. Hopefully it's helping you if you're watching, and in the meantime, go sniff a flower because they're lovely. See ya.